I've got a package from Russia. You can actually see I missed the delivery at one point, and they simply wrote, "This item was sent by Russia." I've actually already partially unboxed it because I wanted to make sure that both components were present at the post office, because it comes in 2 pieces. Let's see what we've got. So what this is a Soviet guitar. I believe it's from 1976 or 1978. Oh, look at that. Put a nice scratch in it. So I'm trying to open it. It's amateur technique. Very strange. Scratch the finish, first thing I touch. Let's see what. Try not to cut it this time. Actually, in fairly good shape. In fact, that scratch I put on it was one of the worst things on. Yeah, so look at that. String trees, all wobbly, tuners wobbly. Perloid tuners. These look like they've been replaced. So this actually says Ural, I believe. Ural 650 is the name of the model. It is disgusting. The nut is broken and kind of off-center and crappy anyway, and glued in very heavily, so I'll have to get rid of that. It's got some kind of weird contraption in here, it looks like. I guess that's like a truss rod. I don't really know how to adjust that. Feels pretty good. A little bit dinged up, if you can see right here. Not very nice. Fretboard is very weird. Kind of just cheap white plastic dots. How strange. Really strange. Maybe some initials on this. Like DK, maybe? If that's in Cyrillic. It's this really weird plastic binding. Here's the scratch I put right in it. Real deep scratch. Unfortunate. Heavy. Let's see the body. I don't really know the first thing about this. It has 3 pickups. Kind of like a weird Russian Strat. Find some videos of it. Seems to be pretty well known for Soviet musicians from that era. Pretty obscure. Western internet. Come with some accessories. Very interesting. Let's actually see what these are real quick. I know what one of them is. I do not know what the rest is. That's really interesting. So this looks like it's a converter. Not really sure what it's supposed to go to. It's just like plug ends that you could solder onto something almost, it looks like. I believe the reason for this is that the jack, the input, is in a different style than like a 1/4-inch standard audio cable that you'd expect to find on an American instrument. Yeah, see, it's got this weird 5-pin connector, almost looks like a MIDI controller kind of connector. This feels really cheap. 2 of them for some reason. I don't really know why. Also, they don't go to 1/4 inch, so I don't know what I'm going to use them for. Break that tape. Got a tremolo arm, a whammy bar. Kind of cool whammy bar, actually. Like weird curvy shape. Not threaded. I guess you just stick it down in. This rubber nub is like an inch worn away. Yeah, so that's the shape of that. So it also came with some postcards or something. Siberian collection of Gennady Pavlovich. Mail.ru in Irkutsk, Russia. Specialized in electric guitars, the USSR and countries of the Warsaw Commonwealth, the GDR, Czechoslovakia, and Bulgaria. Interesting. Got a lot of guitars. This appears to be a fridge magnet. Does it say Baikal? I don't really know how to read Russian. Anyway. Here it is. Look at that. Oh. That is interesting. Came with strings. Came with strings still strung to it. Like threaded through the holes in this fridge. Let's get this out. Get a look at it. Yeah, there it is. That is, wow, that's heavy. I have a Les Paul, and this is easily heavier than that. It's a lot smaller too, which is interesting. Neck pocket. Pickguard's kind of cracked up. Oh, this is screwed in. There's actually screws into this. I can poke my hand on them. They're screwed through this back plate. Finish is cracking off. Really cracking off. I heard that these are polyester, but I don't really know. Got a cool color too. I don't know if you can, probably can't see that, but it's got kind of a like a burst where the edges are sort of black. It's also like this line where the kind of cut is. The arm cut has this black. The bridge and tremolo are like a jazz master, clearly. Wow, that's corroded and bad. This hole is like rusty like crazy. Yeah. Pretty cool looking. Pickups look wild. This thing is like rotting apart though. And you can see the weird jack there. That 5-pin MIDI thing. Or whatever it is. I think it's a German type. Got like 1 million switches on it. My guess is that there's like 1,000 capacitors inside this because you got all these knobs and switches. No idea what they do yet. Have to look that up. The hammer and sickle global logo. Pretty cool. I have no earthly idea if I can get this to play. We'll find out. So, yeah, look at that. It's a cool looking thing, isn't it? Yeah. See what we can do with it. So I have now put the neck on it and cleaned it up quite a bit. It's still a little bit dirty, actually. I just found some piece of gunk there. This thing was filthy. This was gross. Just a lot of kind of grime. The fretboard didn't really have much on it. It's more on the back of the neck. I also oiled the fretboard because it's quite dry. It's really soft fretboard material. I think I've gone back and looked at the listing for this. It says both the guitar and the fretboard and neck are beech, which I've never heard of a beech guitar. This thing weighs an absolute ton. I'm gonna weigh it in just a second with everything on it. What I'm doing right now is just getting ready to put just a new set of strings on it. These ones that it shipped with seem to be, they're definitely on it because they're cut exactly to length and kind of have like an odd kink to them. They don't look like grimy or disgusting, but they're definitely not new, so I'm just going to put new strings. So. Anyway, though, just wanted to kind of show it all together. It's quite nice. Neck has a little bit of rough stuff on the back that I didn't notice earlier. I actually think that the nut being broken might not matter. Just for a quick test, just because you have a 0 fret here, as long as the strings don't want to pop out of those grooves in a major way, probably be okay. The back of this thing, I have the plate off. So there's this plate that actually has a model number. I don't know if this is worth putting on the camera for a second. If anyone could read that. Don't know if that can cue me into when this was made. Don't see a year on there. You can actually see that the plate screws are not the screws that actually bolt the neck on. There's these separate neck bolt screws, which are just like these flat screws. And you have a hole that I think you could probably poke something in and then turn that key for the truss rod. I don't know if there's enough light, probably not, to see that, but you can see into there and see it. It's kind of interesting. The neck definitely has some relief. It's kind of bowed forward just a little bit. Don't know how much. So, interesting. It's a weird thing. A little bit the play neck there. I should probably tighten that down a little more. I'm going to put strings on it, though, and see if I can adjust the bridge to just get any kind of playable action out of this day one. Can't test the electronics yet. I'll have to swap whatever kind of connector that is out. So, interesting. Put a new set of strings on it. Noticing a couple of things that I didn't before. One is that the string spacing on this is not exactly perfect. So the nut is damaged, but it still works. If you go down and kind of just look at it, it might be hard to see on the camera. You sort of have the bass, like low E string, is almost off the edge of the fretboard. And the high E is in a good ways. And there are these multiple saddle slots, kind of like a Jazzmaster or like a Mustang or Jaguar kind of guitar. It's clearly modeled after that kind of Fender. And I've got the low E all the way to the far right and the high E all the way to the far left. And they're still a little off. It's almost as if the bridge isn't centered quite perfectly. But it's not that bad. Probably playable. Less playable is the action on it, which is terrible. The neck is like really thick and sticks up like out of the neck pocket quite a ways. It definitely has too much relief in the neck. The truss rod needs to get adjusted, which we'll look at in a second. I also did kind of notice that there's some problems with the frets. Like some of these high frets you can kind of see gaps starting to form, and it chokes out certain notes that you might try to play. Don't work too well. The other thing is that the 0 fret, if I strum the A string, it buzzes pretty badly. It's like the nut slot isn't cut far down enough to actually depress the string against the 0 fret. And maybe I have the strings through the tree wrong or something, but it sounds like a sitar on that open A. Everything else about it sounds surprisingly okay. The tremolo's really good. I kind of can't believe it. There's like a little bit of play to it. I could probably open it up and jam some spring or something inside there to try and lock the arm in a little tighter so it doesn't have any kind of like clanking. Another thing that I did also is clean this because this thing was disgusting. The fretboard is like really soft, and it was quite dried out, and like there's some cracks in it and stuff. And actually, it looks much better with some oil. Feels much better with some oil in it. The whole neck is birch, or sorry, not birch, beech. Whole neck and body is beech. So what I'm about to do is try to adjust the action on it, and I'll put it down and quit filming because this angle's already terrible enough. The neck is bowed pretty badly. It doesn't look like it's twisted or anything unsalvageable. I think there's a truss rod that's adjustable through this hole. So probably can't see it without good light, but if I look in here, there's this kind of brass piece. It's got holes in it. And I'm going to just poke a kind of like an Allen key down in there, try to twist that and see if that'll adjust the neck truss rod. I think that's how that works. Never really done one with that kind of hardware on the end of it. But we'll see if I can get it adjusted or if I break it or something. It's not really playable how it is. And the bridge is already all the way down. So I'm going to mess with that for a little bit, and then I'll see if it's kind of a little more playable. And then maybe we'll try changing this jack out. That'll kind of be the last thing before we can actually test it. So cool. All right. So I took the neck back off and turned the truss about another eighth of a turn, something like that. It's actually like maybe, if anything, slightly back bowed according to this, just very slightly. I don't know if it'll bend a little bit more under tension. I might turn that back a little bit. And it adjusts nicely. So we're done with that part. I think that's as good as it'll get. As far as the action on it, I do have these shims, like two different sizes from Sumac, cut for like a Strat type pocket. And of course, they're too big to fit in there in this neck pocket, and the bolts are actually spaced a little bit differently. So I don't know if I could probably take one of these and like cut it down and then just drill little holes in it, or cut little holes in it with like an X-Acto knife, just so that the wood is more or less doing the work of raising the front of the pocket up. Might be able to get the action back down a little bit, but ultimately, I mean, I'm not expecting this to play like a really high-end instrument. What we're going to do now is moment of truth. I'm going to take this off and see what in the world's inside of this. I looked up a couple of videos of other people who have done similar ones. I'm pretty sure that the jack will be connected with only two wires, like just a ground and a hot. And so I'll be able to replace it. I have this washer container. Have a new 1/4-inch input jack, and I'm hoping that I can use one of these washers to just sort of like stick it in there and keep it in place. But I really have no idea what's going to be inside of this. I've seen ones where there's like nothing hooked up to some of the switches, or you get all kinds of old weird alien stuff in here. So let's remove these and see how it goes. This pickguard is way more flexible than... Oh, the whole thing is routed out. Wow. So all the switches are connected. And it looks like just a gazillion capacitors in here. Look at that. Oh wow, that's really interesting. There's Cyrillic writing on all these capacitors. Looks like they marked 3-78 on everything. I wonder if this is 1978. I think that's what was in the listing. So I think that probably confirms the date that this was made, if you can read it. Wow, look at that. There's this actual like piece of PCB. Well, not PCB, just perf board, I guess. It's actually kind of neatly done there. That's pretty nice. Old, I mean. The smell of that's unbelievable. So there's a bunch of length on this wire that actually connects it. And it looks like this jack plate is screwed in. I have a tiny screwdriver for that. This might be, I think it's gonna be too big. Yeah, I need to get a tinier screwdriver for that. I think that I can just remove, you can't see it, but there's 2 wires connected here, as I've seen online. And one is like copper, the other is not. I'm pretty sure that's just ground and then signal. So I think that I'll be able to remove this and put this in. Yeah, I think that'll fit just fine. Now I'm actually not sure with the hardware on this if I'll be able to get it to poke all the way up through this and this kind of thick flat washer, so I'll have to mess with that a little bit, but I'm going to solder that on got the gun over there. Look at that though. That is incredible. You can also see how much the pick guard's faded. I don't know if it's coming through, but it's much, much glossier and like sparklier on this side than on the other. Or it's yellower and looks nasty. Look at that. That's really interesting there. It's kind of harness that they've done. Solder looks pinkish too. I don't know what that is. Pinkish solder. Wow. These magnets. That's crazy. Yep. Well, try and solder that, and then we'll see if I can get any noises to come out of this or not. So that is real interesting. All these switches are connected. All right. Okay, so we're gonna solder this now. Have a new 1/4-inch jack right here. So I've actually looked at this a little bit more closely. What you can see on this is that it's got these 5 pins here, but only 3, well, I guess actually none of the pins are connected to ground, but if you look at this, there's a ground coming out, which is this uninsulated part that goes to this bottom pin on the back of this. And then on the left and right, there are 2 other of these, and both of those have this insulated inner like signal line going to both of them. And there's like a jump across the 2. I guess this might have been like you could do stereo or different stuff with this, but they've got everything wired together for this. So I think that I'll just take and kind of get that off and get that off, and then just go signal and ground on this 1/4-inch, and that should work. So let's see if I can do that. I'm trying to get a better view here. Let's go see how that works. So, plug everything in, see if we get some horrible sound. Burst into flames. Got signal. Let's give the old screwdriver pickup test. Oh, look at that. Wow. That works. It is officially making sound. That's amazing. All right, let's get all this out of here. Put it back together. One other quick thing while I've got this like this before I put it back together is I kind of want to take a look at what's in here. And I'm pretty impressed with the tremolo. I think it's like a Jazzmaster type. Just want to kind of see what's inside. Maybe there's any surprises in there or something. I also probably want to know for eventually I'm gonna drill probably a hole like this or over here, probably through here because there's more room to kind of go through into that cavity down there, whatever's there, for a ground. Totally ungrounded right now will probably be quite buzzy and noisy. So, yep. Let's see what's in there. If I can get this plate off. There we go. Oh, that's interesting. Yep. So let me try to get a better look in there. You can see that there's a spring that's perpendicular to the body, and then this big sort of a rotating assembly, like a little axle. And then as you push up and down, that's a heavy gauge spring. Just dust and cobwebs down in there. Yeah, that's actually a very nice tremolo system. I mean, it works quite well. There's a little bit of play between the arm and this collet that it goes into. Which if I take this off, what's this look like in here? Yeah, so this collet tightens down and then it squeezes this. Yeah, don't know if I can do anything. I've got like springs and stuff, like if you had a Stratocaster one. Yeah, look in there. Neat. Probably hasn't been opened since 1978. But wondering if I could put anything in there to try and keep it from having that play causes that. The sound when it's on. Neat. That's that. Anyway, I'll put that back together. So I put this down, and then I'm going to reassemble the whole thing. And we'll do a sound test. Exciting stuff. Right, so here it is. I've put it back together. I did have to take this apart one more time that I did not film to actually chisel out some wood around the input, which was really annoying to put it all back together and then take it apart again. Because the jack wouldn't actually go in. The pin, like the ground pin that actually catches the tip of this, pushed up against the wood and it wouldn't go in, so I had to take it off. Anyway though, after doing that, put it all back together and it does in fact work. I don't know how this is going to sound recorded. It is very, very buzzy. There is no ground at all to the bridge or strings. So there's just nothing connecting the cavity to this cavity. There's no way that you could put a ground wire. So I'm probably going to have to drill between this route that was here and this bottom one and then find a way to touch something to this plate probably. I don't really want to try to go for these bridge poles because they're just like this really narrow bolt put in. The action on this is still pretty high, and there are dead frets various places. Like if I go up here, so that's not even the right note. Some of these are really high. If you try to do any bends or anything, not very good. So nothing too exciting, but I actually think this thing is not that bad. So let me explain the controls. These three white switches are for the pickups. So if the switch is depressed, that pickup is on. So you can select them in any configuration. I could do like neck and bridge. I could do middle only. Whatever you want. This bottom potentiometer is master volume, and then I think each of these other three knobs is for the pickup volume. I don't know if it's meant to be tone. They kind of like, if you roll them off, let's see if I can do it. Really scratchy. There's kind of this like cliff at the end where like it's either completely off muted or like a good bit of sound coming out. And it does kind of mute the tone a little bit. So maybe it's meant to be more of a tone thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe something's a little wrong with it, whatever. But that's what each of these three do. They each control a different pickup. And then these black switches are something kind of interesting. They're wired into all of the capacitors that are connected to all these knobs. So they just change the tone of each pickup. I don't know how to describe it exactly. I'll probably get to that as I go through each pickup. I'm going to start with the neck. So if I only engage the neck, I think something might be wrong with the neck pickup. I don't know if it needs to be rewired or if one of the potentiometers is messed up, one of the capacitors that it's wired through. But the neck is really, really quiet. You could hear the hum went away almost immediately, and I'm just neutral, kind of setting a clean tone on an amp. And you can kind of hear something coming through. Maybe I could turn this up a little bit. But it's really not very much, and it's just so muted. Like there's no high end at all to it. I mean, even like just kind of the guitar range of frequencies is like missing from this, it sounds like. If I push this black switch in, it gets a little louder. Maybe. Very clean. Not a horrible sound. I mean, mess with the tremolo a little bit. It's not terrible, but it's too quiet, and I feel like something might be wrong. I'm gonna check that one in the future. Maybe try to redo the electronics surrounding it or look up what it's supposed to do. But that's the neck pickup. The other two pickups are much louder. So if I switch to middle only, and this is with the black switch turned off. So kind of a fat tone for that one. Not bad. Pretty good single sound. I mean, it's a nice pickup, to be honest. With the black switch engaged, it sounds a little different. To me, that black switch maybe... it's definitely taking away... it sounds a little bit more defined with this pickup. I don't know if it's like a mid-scoop, what that might be doing. It changes the sound a lot, kind of interesting. So that's the middle. And then the bridge is brighter and everything. A little bit janglier. Bright sound. Then if I put in this switch, that, I mean, there's no low end of that at all, and it seems like maybe it took some mid out too. That sounds really tinny. I didn't really like that. Sorry. Not much of a guitarist, if you can't tell. Anyway, though, yeah, kind of interesting. If I put two on at the same time, and there's really no point doing that with the neck because it's so quiet. I don't know if you get any hum cancellation. I can't really tell a difference, but it does change the sound of both of them together. It's a really interesting sounding guitar. It doesn't sound exactly like a Stratocaster, I would say. It's probably closest to that. I actually like the sound of it, and the tremolo is surprisingly... you can dive quite low at this, like probably more than like a Jazz Master. Maybe kind of similar. And you can go up further, that's for sure. So it's not bad. The dead frets are a real problem because you want to do anything kind of fun, you can't very quickly. And the action's just terrible. I mean, it's... You just can't really do anything. You can see like the string gets caught under my finger. But it's an interesting sounding instrument. I'm probably going to finish this video with this. I don't have any tools to clamp the frets down. I don't really know how to do that very well. I might order some things and revisit it. I might just take it to a shop and maybe I'll update on how it goes. Probably replace the nut and things too. But I figured just to end with a sound test. It's not bad. Stays in tune okay too. So anyway, that's a Ural 650. So now you know what it sounds like.